We have Adrienne Bankert, best-selling author, Emmy award-winning journalist, host of Morning in America on News Nation, here with us at New You magazine to discuss all things career longevity, mental health, women's wellness, and so much more. Thank you so much, Adrienne, for joining us today. How are you?
I am so amazing. Thank you, Don Tara. Thanks for the introduction.
Of course, and I know time is limited, so we're going to jump right in with our first question. So with the 2:30 a.m. start time, how do you get in the right headspace to begin your day?
I think, well, first of all, I've been doing morning news forever, almost 2 decades, actually, if you look back on my career. And it's just something where it's a muscle. You just develop the ability to get up. I got up today around 2:10 a.m. I had gone to bed around 11 something p.m. So I only had 3 hours of sleep in my bed. I slept a couple of hours on a plane because I was flying back from California. And you make it happen. You do what it takes. You adjust. You don't always go to bed at 11 o'clock. That's not my typical bedtime. I go to bed closer to 8 o'clock at night. And as long as I get 6 hours on a consistent basis, I'm golden.
Well, let me just say, you look phenomenal to have 8 hours of sleep.
Lots of makeup.
And so, on the opposite end of that, how do you wind down at night when it's time to end your day?
I mean, when you get up at 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning, it's easy to wind down. It's just, if you're an early riser, you can get to bed relatively quickly. I stay busy. I walk a lot. Walking for me is therapy. Living in Chicago, it's gorgeous here. You're right by the lake and the river. So I think that between physically challenging myself and then the challenges of my job at a mental and emotional perspective, when I lay my head down, I'm done. But I do try to put the phone away more. I noticed that I've created a pretty not so good habit of having the phone in my bed. And it's the first thing that I want to grab. I usually like to read while the lights are off, but I have this light in my room that dims quietly, like it just slowly turns off so that it's a reading light and I don't have to use my phone necessarily. I can use a book and then hopefully I'm knocked out in the next 15 minutes or so.
That's actually really good because a lot of times we tend to go to our phones, get sucked up in social media and just the day
Yeah.
to day. And when you're trying to decompress, that's a very good way to sort of segue from that.
Yeah.
But you also said something about mental and emotional health. So consistently covering, the top news stories, that can be very challenging for your mental and emotional health. So although you can't avoid stress, do you practice any consistent routines to combat the stress?
It's interesting. I'm a little different duck. The stresses of the job are more the outpouring of being engaged for
Mhm.
such a long period of time. The stories themselves don't challenge me in a mental and emotional way. I get asked all the time, like, don't you get sad? Don't you get upset when you see some of the content that you have to deliver on? And for me, I can separate myself. So I think one of the practices that I think is good is that when you're in work mode, you can be engaged, you can be compassionate without being so fully invested that you are uh, taking on the care or the burden of the story or the subject matter. For me, I think life is stressful enough. I'm able to disassociate myself from thinking I have to try to solve all the world's problems. So that's my tip to anybody. Don't try to solve all the world's problems when you're at work. And you'll be able to basically tell somebody's story in a way that people can relate to it without being burdened by it. I think that's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, that's a very great tip. Thank you for sharing that. And, so you were talking about being in work mode. So what do you do on your days off to reconnect with your body and with yourself?
Like I said, I love walking. Walking is really important to me. I write. I've got 5 books inside of me right now that all need to be done, and so it's something where I carve out time to write, to read, to relax and rest. And then I also connect with friends and people, whether I'm mentoring them or whether they're somebody who's investing in me. That is the time when I am with people, whether it's in person or on the phone. I've learned more and more that we need in-person connections.
Mhm.
So much of what we've done virtually has been survival mode. And like I said, I just got back from visiting family in California, and I had no idea how much I needed in-person time. So for me, that's the key to life right now.
And you mentioned something like you have 5 books inside of you. But
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about your book, Your Hidden Superpower. The kindness that makes you unbeatable at work and connects you with anyone. Can you tell me more about the concept behind the book? What prompted you to write this book?
It was actually my business coach and mentor. He said, you need to write a book that shares kindness from a different perspective. I did not think I was kind enough to write a book on kindness. I thought he should have written a book, but he said, I'm not the one meant to do it. So for me, I started writing down just things that I learned in my career. A lot of recent stories from Good Morning America when I worked for that entity, when I worked for ABC News and ABC Network. And I recognized that it opened doors for me to be kind to people. It wasn't necessarily my talent, especially when you're working with a lot of talented people. If you're not careful, you'll get into competition mode where you will think that you have to keep up with different personalities or people or positions. That is impossible because there's just so many people who are good at what they do. But when you're kind, what I try to illustrate in the book, or what I do illustrate in the book, is that's your thumbprint. That's that one thing about you. That's the expression of the true essence of you that no one can duplicate. And what the world's looking for right now is undeniable authenticity. And so I share kindness not just as something that is polite to do or appropriate to do, but something that is vital to being who you really are.
You said something when you said you didn't think that you were kind enough to write this book, and your book has transformed lives. So how did you get out of that sort of limiting belief that you weren't kind enough to write this book?
I think I got out of it by having someone believe in me.
Mm.
I think that we often think that we are determined by our own stick to itiveness, or our own pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, or our own tenacity. And I've been there. But for me, what has really moved me through this earth in a way that is effective, what has really given me confidence, is someone else believing in me. When someone gives you that kind of love, that kind of confidence, it builds confidence in you. And it's something that is a building block, I think, for community and for living a life that is truly genuine, and for becoming the kind of person you always wanted to be. My mother would quote John Donne all the time as a kid: "No man is an island." And I never understood that beyond, well, we're meant to be together. Now that I'm older, now that I'm wiser, I realize no man is an island means I cannot succeed without somebody loving me. I cannot succeed without somebody saying, you can do this, and I'm not going to let you fall. And I've been graced and blessed with people like that in my life. So I'm going to be that to as many people as I can. And it kind of gives you a mutual life preserver
Mhm.
in your life. So
Well, I'm gonna plug a personal story, just piggybacking off of what you said, having someone believe in me. I used to be an intern at Good Morning America. That was my very first internship. And, I didn't think that I would land such a dream opportunity to be in the studio with Robin Roberts and Diane Sawyer, but I just needed somebody to believe in me, and they did. That was my first internship. And now look at me, I'm interviewing you and
that's right.
so many different people just from just from believing in me. So yeah.
See, you're living proof of what I'm saying.
Exactly. And so do you think there are any other hidden superpowers that can help people propel them in their career, or, connect them with anyone aside from kindness?
Generosity is a hidden superpower. I think that we think of giving around holidays, we think of giving around those in need, we think of giving around birthdays or celebrations. But in life and in business, it's often a generous call. It's somebody who's saying, hey, let me know if you need anything, and they actually mean it. It's somebody getting a coffee for their manager when their manager is swamped with work. And it's like, in the busyness of the day, just the thoughtfulness of a gift. And some people would say, oh, well, that sounds like you're talking about kindness still. Everything's connected, right? Kindness is generosity, generosity is kind. But to focus on what you can give will actually keep you from becoming selfish. It'll keep you from becoming suicidal. It'll keep you from becoming so caught up in the problems of life. Because the truth is, the stress and the pressures are never going to go away. They are never going to go away. The earth is rattled right now. And I don't think that we're going to see it stop shaking. No matter how many people come up with political ideas or viewpoints or solutions or charities, it's not going to stop shaking. And it's the people who can stay steady in the eye of the storm while the storm is raging who are going to help the most people. And it's going to be through generosity. And I truly believe that being a giver and thinking, how can I reach out? How can I deposit into someone else? How can I invest is the one thing that can keep you from losing it when everything is topsy-turvy.
Absolutely. And you said staying steady in the eye of the storm. And with that, rejection is a reality that essentially everyone faces in their careers or even day to day. And for you, especially from hostessing at a restaurant to hosting your own show, how did you manage those moments of rejection early in your career and bounce back to get to where you are today?
Well, the interesting thing is that hosting in a restaurant was not early in my career. That was actually in the middle of my career. I just don't really know what time it was. So it was at a crucial point where a deal fell through, a major deal, and I was out of work. And I was just talking to a new friend today about this, how they were an athlete and they had times of their career where they weren't working. And just, you feel devastated in the moment. You feel so ashamed in the moment. But there are a lot of actors and actresses who go through the same thing. And then you see them in a restaurant and then you see them on Broadway, so why do we make it such a big deal? The time when I was hostessing in a restaurant, it was only a 2.5-week period. But it was such a humbling experience because you really go for things, you really strive for things, you really want things badly, but you can misinterpret how to execute. You can want to plan this whole thing out, and then you hit a wall because your perspective is wrong. Mm-hmm. And so what I would say the bounce back is, first of all, realizing that everybody goes through a challenge. There are a lot of people who don't have to work at a restaurant for minimum wage in between 6-figure jobs, but I did, and I'm not the only person. And so what I think is necessary is realizing that everything is temporary, and then knowing that the hardships of life actually make for the best stories. You think about the best movies, you think about the best books. There's this crazy crisis that happens where it feels like your whole life is over. And then the heroine or the hero rises. And we all relate to those stories because we've all felt like our life is over at different points. And we want to see somebody win. And so when you do go through those moments where you feel like, I just don't think I'm going to make it, when you have thoughts of self-harm, I want you to remember your favorite movie. And I want you to remember your favorite book. And I want you to remember that climax where it's that do or die crossroads, and how somehow the writer knows how to deliver the solution for that person to get out of their scenario, to survive, to end up finding their purpose, to rise above the waters. And once you get a vision for that, you can make it, and you won't see yourself as a failure.
Mm. And that was very good advice. And to your point, everything is temporary. But you also mentioned something about if you have thoughts of self-harm. And I know you've been vocal about dealing with suicide within your family. So with so much lingering uncertainty and isolation during the height of the pandemic, how did 2020, reshape your view on the notion of self-care and protecting your mental health?
Yeah, I was working for Good Morning America at the time, and I suggested to reach out, write a letter to your self. Write a letter to the person who was going to get out of that tunnel. Because what tends to happen is we get very caught up in the moment and we don't see a way out. And 2020 was like that. It was like, isolating at home. I lived in New York at the time. Nobody wanted to talk to you. Strangers didn't smile at you anymore. Everybody had a mask on. You couldn't have that same human interaction. It was very devastating. And for me, being an extroverted people person, it was really rough. And I think that what I suggested, my first suggestion, outside of journaling, outside of calling somebody, outside of reaching out and messaging somebody and letting them know you care, or sending them Uber Eats or a Venmo to take them out to lunch remotely, the first thing I said was, write a letter to your future self on the other side of this pain. Write a letter to your future self, or write it in the perspective of you. So I'm a writer. I write news scripts and I write books. And what I've had to learn to do is narrate and change the narrative of my own life. And so if somebody's listening to this and you feel like your life is hitting another wall like it did in 2020, I want you to stop right now, and I want you to write a letter as if you're on the other side of the pain, to draw a picture and create a vision for survival, and for not just survival, but I made it. I conquered that. I was able to get through that impossible situation. And then you look at that letter frequently and say, okay, this is my new vision for myself. Because otherwise you get stuck in a pit of despair and depression, and you can't see anything. It doesn't matter how many friends call you. It doesn't matter how many therapy sessions you have. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So create your own light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. That reminds me of the saying, the days are long, but the years are short. Is that the saying?
Good.
But yeah, but also just in terms of you looking back, like, it was some moments in my life and I looked back and was like, oh, I made it through. But at the time, like you said, you get so stuck and you get so caught up and not realizing that everything is temporary. You're only looking at it right now. And right now, it just seems like everything is just shattering or coming down. So being
Yeah.
able to look at it from the other side, like, I look back and I'm like, wow, I made it.
Write
And
your script. It's
yeah.
it's important. We get caught up in entertainment. The reason why we like entertainment is because it creates a picture for us. Because some of us are too lazy to want to create our own picture. But you get to author your own life. I have a friend who I mentored for years. I'll never forget a message she shared called Take Two. And it's when life goes differently than you planned, but it's like, pick up the pieces from the editing floor, from the edit room floor, and do another take. If the first take didn't happen right, and the second take, how many times do you have to yell cut and retake the idea or the shot of what your life is going to look like? And I promise you, it'll give you hope.
Absolutely. And I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about beauty and wellness.
All
So,
right.
I was on your Instagram feed and you stay sharp, stay fabulous.
Thank God for
And
stylists and fashion and brands and all that. Yeah.
yes, and you give credit. I love that. You always give credit. But you often speak about your style choices and different on-camera looks on your Instagram account. So what do you want your style to say about you?
Oh, well, I always am looking to elevate it.
Mhm.
It's interesting. People can compliment me for days, and I appreciate every compliment, but I'm always looking to how can I reimagine myself, or how can I step it up? Not because of materialism's sake, but we're constantly evolving. And I don't dress the same as I did when I first started in my career. When I first started in TV, I wore a lot of Forever 21, and my bosses ended up taking me to Nordstrom. They paid for me to get suits and turtlenecks, and they only let me wear these boxy suits and turtlenecks. God bless you. I'm not going to name you guys, but Tracy and Gretchen, they took me out and were like, you're going to look like this, because I looked like a college kid, and it's a top 20 market. I was working with people who were a little older than me, and I looked like the kid, and they didn't want me to look like the kid. Now, I think they ended up making me look a little too old. I feel like I look younger now than I did when I first started in my career. But it's because I've been able to accept and own the style that I have. And I'm in a different place too. So I think that it's about just feeling comfortable in your clothes, but looking very sophisticated and gracious, and yet looking relatable at the same time. So I would say I like a combination of elegance, sophistication, and fun.
I like that. And what is your number one go-to beauty tip to look camera ready?
Number one beauty tip to look camera ready. You know, have somebody in your life who knows how to do brows. Aisha is amazing. I mean, my brows always look great, and it has nothing to do with me at all. And it takes a long time to get these brows. Um, so that might be my number one beauty tip. I think brows are really, really crucial. But I try to take care of my skin. I think that's a big deal to me. Regular facials and keeping my skin clear is huge.
Do you have a skincare routine that you would like to share with us, or?
Well, get a facial every month if you can. If not, like make sure Dermalogica has a great rice powder cleanser that can like scrub your face gently. I use Dr. Dennis Gross's glycolic wipes on my face to try to get rid of hyperpigmentation. But I try to wash my face as often as I can. I try to take the makeup off every night. I'm pretty much down to always doing that. Like I used to be really bad and not do that. And then drink lots of water, and I moisturize this is, you know what, I'll tell you, this is my number one tip. This is my number one tip that I tell my girlfriends, but I don't always get asked in interviews. When you put on moisturizer, act like you're icing a cake. Don't rub it into your skin. I want to see a layer of icing on your face so that when you go to bed, it soaks in throughout the night and it just plumps your skin up. So I always tell my friends, like, ice the cake when you put on moisturizer at nighttime.
Did not know that. Definitely trying to how that goes.
It works. My skin is really moisturized.
And in terms of diet, how do you maintain a healthy diet with such a busy schedule?
Well, it's so funny because I used to eat McDonald's every week. And I still love McDonald's. I still love the filet of fish sandwich. But I have learned with my schedule and my personality and my hormones that different foods affect me different ways. And so I do try to eat organic food whenever possible. I just sent one of our PAs, I was like, can you go to the store and get me some blueberries and some yogurts? And I have to eat like I want to live 120 years. So I try not to eat desserts anymore. In fact, I don't try. I really have been pretty adamant about not eating desserts outside of a little frozen yogurt here. I eat tons of fruit. So for me, that's kind of dessert, watermelon and mango and things like that. But I limit the processed foods to, once in a while. I don't drink caffeine at all, not even green tea at the recommendation of a doctor. The biggest thing for me as a woman is knowing your hormones. When I was in my 20s, I wanted to do a conference on hormonal health because I said nobody talks about anything except for periods, pregnancy, and perimenopause. That's all anybody talks about. They don't talk about the fact that over the course of your 20s and 30s, you're going to experience hormonal shifts where you should see a doctor, but it's not something that's under the basic guidelines of health.
Right.
When I did it, I was way beyond what I should have waited. But my girlfriend was like, Adrienne, go get your hormones checked. I found out about progesterone and it changed my entire life. It made my mood calm down. I had struggled with mood swings, severe mood swings every month during that time of the month. I think it's a game changer. I think every 20 something and 30 something year old woman should go get their hormones checked. Of course, after you get over that age, they tell you to check yourself, but you might need a little more testosterone. You might need a little bit more progesterone. You might need some DHEA, but get your hormones checked at a bioidentical hormone facility. And you can go on Suzanne Summers' website. Suzanne Summers, old school Three's Company and the Thigh Master, Suzanne Summers. She has a whole registry of every bioidentical hormone doctor in the United States. And it's a free resource. And it saved my life. I met an amazing doctor here, Dr. Tom Loeb from Regenerveda. And then he recommended me to my muscle therapist. So diet is great, but hormones are what I really rest. I think it keeps you young. I think it helps your skin. I think it helps your monthly mood swings are the biggest thing. And that in turn helps you with your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
I could talk about it for days.
but to your point, people have to be educated or at least know about it, because a lot of times we do just talk about, pregnancy. We don't talk about hormonal health, and especially at such a young age.
It's crucial. I'm telling you, most of us are hormonal. Most of us are hormonally imbalanced and don't know it. And it could be genetic. It could be because you have fibroids you don't know about. It could be because of the food you're eating, because there are things in our diet, in our processed world that affect us and we don't even know it. And it could be something that reveals an underlying condition. So get your blood tested and get your hormones checked out and thank me later.
Yes, absolutely. For me, it was fibroids. So, and that's
See?
how I found out about my mood swings and everything else.
Yep.
But yes. And now, what is your definition of beauty and how has your perception of beauty shifted throughout the years?
Hmm. Well, I think that the way that you look outside and everybody, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, we know that, but just owning who you are, whatever shape you are, whatever, curves you do or don't have, however you feel most confident. I mean, I would have never thought that wearing a tight bun would be a look that I had on daily news, but people always compliment my bun. I don't wear it every single day, but it's easy and it keeps me from having to deal with the humidity in Chicago where I live. But beauty for me starts with the heart. And I've had to work on my heart over the years. You end up getting hurt in life. You end up getting wounded from failed relationships, from generational trauma, from bad decisions, from mistakes that you haven't forgiven yourself for, and you're walking around wounded. And so you can be the most beautiful woman in the world, but have this look of despair on your face. And it's been the people in my life who I might have not recognized how sweet their hearts were until I had a problem and they helped me, that I could say, wow, they have a beautiful heart. Because it's easy to say somebody has a beautiful heart when they're buying you lunch that day. Oh, you are so amazing. I just love you. But it's when things aren't as curated. It's when you're off Instagram. It's when there's a moment where you need a real friend, that you see someone's heart. And when you can see someone's heart for who they really are, that is the most precious and beautiful person in the world. And I'm constantly working on purifying my motives, my intentions, to be the best person I can be, because I never want to hurt anybody. And if we can all focus on healing our hearts, then we'd all share more beauty with each other, and the world would be a more beautiful place.
Wow, well, this was amazing. We're gonna end it on there because that was such like I'm about to tear up. I'm over here like, yes, heal the heart.
No, it's true.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure, such a treat. Like I said, to take time out of your busy schedule to chat with us today. We learned so much um, from, healing your heart, kindness, skincare routine. I'm going to try tonight.
Ice
From
the cake,
yourself.
girl. Just put
Yes,
that
ice
icing on the
the
cake.
cake. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Don Terry. You did a great job. Thank you to the team.